Can you hear now?
Yes.
Okay. For those that may not know me, I'm Mike Chenault. I've lived here on the peninsula. I'll start down the typical. I've lived here just about 51 years. I've been married to my bride for just almost 40 years now. I have 5 kids that we raised, 4 girls and 1 boy. 2 live outside, 3 still live here in town or in Los Angeles. I grew up here on the peninsula. I grew up in Nikiski. I worked for an oil field service company for most of my life out in the Cook Inlet and certainly at the chemical plants and the LNG plant, the soil plant. That's my background. For the last 18 years, I've served as a representative for my district in the state of Alaska House of Representatives. For 4 of those years, I served as the co-chair of finance, and for 8 of those years, I served as the longest sitting speaker in the state of Alaska. Up until a couple of years ago, when we had an election, and we had 3 people that decided that they had more in common with the Democrats than they had with the Republicans, and chose to join them. So I'm currently sitting as the minority whip in the House. In a way, it's kind of nice because I don't have any pressure. It's not up to me to try to get us out of there in 90 days, which, once again, we failed to do. It's not up to me to supply a smaller budget, which is what we need, because I'm not in charge. And I don't have that much authority to determine the, I don't want to say that, to determine what direction the budget's went. We're down there for 90. I think we're going to be through earlier, I hope. And we're after 90 days now. Hopefully within the next 10 minutes we'll be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Chenault, running for governor. You can pass that right in once again. The other unique thing about this format is we have governor and lieutenant governor candidates here. But in the traditional thing of having all the governors answer questions and then all the lieutenant governor questions, and that's what will be happening throughout the campaign, we've paired them up. And so we are going to keep that kind of pairing, and then we will mix them up to see how they may work together in the future. So we will have Lynn Gaddis give us her 2-minute opening remarks. Lynn, welcome.
Thank you. I tried to give the mic away to all these guys. None of those mics wanted it, but anyway, no, seriously. My name is Lynn Gaddis, and I was raised in the interior, in the Gakona-Gokana area, and went to school in Gakona. I went to high school in Cordova and graduated there, and then moved to Dillingham, where I started in aviation in Cordova and ran some airlines in King Salmon and Dillingham and Kodiak for another 11, 12 years. That was during the aviation or airline deregulation, and I like to tell people kind of as a joke that I ran a lot of airlines into the ground. But seriously, that's when we started having a different way in deregulated airlines. I moved to Anchorage and then went to work for the world's largest all-cargo airline as their sales manager. That was Flying Tigers, and I'm glad to say that I know that there's enough in here that have heard of Flying Tigers. When you speak to the young folks, they still think it's a circus act. So I met my husband at Flying Tigers. He was a captain, and Flying Tigers was bought out by FedEx, and Rick went on to retire from FedEx at age 65, so just a couple of years ago. And we have many different businesses. Imagine this, we have a Gaddis aircraft, an aviation business where we lease airplanes to the lodges and also do the annuals. I'm a private pilot. My husband has his own airplane. I have mine. I was a legislator in the House of Representatives for 2 terms. I have not been for the last 2 years. We have 4 large farms out in Point McKenzie, and I have 15 seconds left. And with that, I'll hand the mic off. But I guess I really want to say I've signed the front side of a check before, and you'll be hearing more from me. Thanks.
Lynn Gaddis. Running for governor of the Great Land of Alaska. Mike, 2 minutes if you would introduce yourself.
Sure. Can you guys hear me without the mic?
No.
I can
Always use a mic. Always use a mic. That's
okay.
the best tip I can give you for the rest of the campaign. Always use a mic.
Sounds good. So my name is Mike Dunleavy. First of all, I want to thank the ladies for putting this on and for everyone being here today on a Saturday. Hopefully it's going to be a better day tomorrow, but in terms of weather. But thank you for having us here today. Mike Dunleavy came up to Alaska in 1983 from Pennsylvania. Went to Southeast Alaska when I first got here, worked in a logging camp, then worked my way north to the Nome-Kotzebue area where I spent almost 19 years as a teacher, principal, and superintendent. It's where I met my wife, Rose. We've been married for 31 years. Our 3 kids were born out there. In 2004, we moved to the Valley, where I ran for the school board, had a consulting business in education, and was on the school board for 3 years in the Matsu Valley, was president for 2 years when I was on the board. Then decided to run for Senate in 2012. Was elected to the Senate, went down to Juneau to try and get more investment in Alaska, especially oil. We were part of the SB 21 bill that was passed to get more oil into the pipeline. And sat on various committees, Senate Finance, sat on Education, State Affairs. And I just want to say that when I first came to this state, it was a remarkable state. It was amazing, the opportunities here in Alaska. In Southeast Alaska, the logging camp, people were making money hand over fist. When I went up to Western Alaska, there was mining going on. There was petroleum, obviously, at its heyday in the 80s and 90s up north. And last several years, we've fallen on hard times, last 3 or 4 years. And I just want folks to remember that we haven't run out of oil, we haven't run out of trees, we haven't run out of minerals, that there is still tremendous opportunity here in Alaska if we have the right people in place, the right governor with the right policies. And so I'm really optimistic, really hopeful that this coming election we can turn things around, create more jobs, more wealth, and more opportunity for our kids. So again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank all of you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we'll be candidate for Lieutenant Governor Kevin Meyer. Kevin, 2 minutes for opening remarks, please.
All right, thank you very much. And first of all, let me thank the Kenai Peninsula Borough Women, Republican Women, for putting on this event. Thank you all for coming out and spending part of your Saturday with us. This is a great venue, great event. As was mentioned, my name is Kevin Meyer, and I'm currently a senator from South Anchorage. We still call it Anchorage. And I've been in the Senate now 10 years, excuse me. And in the Senate, I've been the president, finance chair, rules chair, majority leader. So I've held all the leadership positions. Before that, I was in the State House with Mike for 8 years. In fact, Mike and I were the co-chair of finance together. And then prior to that, I served 8 years on the Anchorage Assembly. I'm married to my wife, Marty, for 36 years, and I've lived here in Alaska for 40 years, almost all my life. Went right from a farm in Nebraska, go Big Red, to inside joke. There's a few Nebraska folks here. Right from the farm to work for an oil company, and I've worked for that oil company and in the private sector pretty much all my life. And I have, my wife and I have 2 kids and 2 dogs, and I have 2 college degrees, a master's degree in business and a master's degree in public administration. And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to use both of these degrees. Of course, the master's degree in business I use at my private sector job, which I still work at when we're not in session. And then the master's degree in public administration I've been able to use through my years in public service, elected service of 26 years. And what I've seen many governors over this time, 5 to be exact, and some have been more effective than others. And this one has not been very effective. And we need to replace them, and that's what I want to do. I want to help the governor candidate replace our current governor, the lieutenant governor. Thank you.
And our next gubernatorial candidate to give you his 2-minute opening statement is Scott Hawkins.
Thanks, Kevin. I had to tease Kevin a little bit earlier. We're both wearing the Los Anchorage uniform today. Blue blazer, blue banker shirt, tie with a little red in it, gray slacks, black shoes. We exchange memos each time before the event. But my name's Scott Hawkins. I've been an Alaskan for 35 years. I'm married to my wife Toyoko, who is sitting right over here today. At least I think she is, if I can see the lights. Yes, there she is. Yeah. These Gleek lights. Came up to Alaska as a bank economist in the early 1980s, as Senator Dunleavy says, back when the economy was really booming. And I started out my career in economics because when I was in college, I was told I didn't have quite enough personality to be an accountant. So I've been working on that ever since. But it was a great opportunity for me to practice economics and really get to know the heartbeat of Alaska, the industry drivers and what drives the different regions. It was a great opportunity. When the economy went south in the late 1980s, I was named as the founding president of the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation. And I came in and started that program up. It's still alive and well today, 30 years later. But we did projects and put things together that still today employ thousands of Alaskans. After running that for 8 years, I went into my entrepreneurial mode, which is where I've been for 20 plus years. I founded 2 companies that have withstood the test of time. One is an international tour company called Shirokuma Tours. We specialize in inbound Japanese groups. The other, and it employs about 5 people. The other is Advanced Supply Chain International, which is an oil field services company that I co-founded in 1999. And then it employs about 200 people, most of them Alaskans. We've got operations in the lower 48 in North Dakota, Texas, and other places. So that's the business background and perspective that I bring to my candidacy. Thank you.
Scott Huggins, candidate for Canada. And our final candidate here tonight for Lieutenant Governor, Edie Grunwald. Edie, 2 minutes for opening remarks, please.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see you. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I am not a politician. It's my first time in. I'm retired military, 31 years. I'm the retired colonel, wanting to be promoted to lieutenant governor. So, who would have figured? But I came to Alaska in 1985. I was an aircraft machinist. It was my first choice assignment and first choice job. They opened up an Air National Guard base there, the KC-135s. I went over there, got on full time, then active duty in the Guard all the way till September 2016 when I retired. The PFD belongs to the people. The budget needs to get fixed, needs to get a sustainable budget, and we need to reduce crime. I have been touched by crime, and it's one of the things that's propelled me into this, and I'm here to work and make a difference and make this happen, and be a great partner to the governor and make the governor look good, be a liaison to the people. And also I am married, 20 years. My son was 16 in November 2016. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. I do, and I'm here to work my butt off on getting SB 91 repealed. I know that some people will fully support it, but there's a lot of things in it that need to get fixed. So I'm here to be, I'm from the community, I'm here to make a difference, so thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, now they're a unique format. These are the hot seats, and the questions, usually you ask the same question of each candidate to respond to the same thing, but this is individual questions that have been crafted by the board from the Republican Women's Club to ask to each individual question to each of the candidates. So our first 2 candidates are going to be Mike Chenault and Lynn Gaddis. So if you come up and take our hot seats. And now we move from 2 minutes to 60-second replies to the question. So we'll let Mike pick up the microphone for the first time. And as you can imagine, the first question deals with economy, : Alaska has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country and a continuing recession that has left too many people without a job. How do you propose to turn Alaska's economy around, Mike?
And thanks, Merle. Thanks for the question. We're a resource state, and we're going to make our money. We're going to make jobs on resource development. There's a lot of opportunities on the North Slope currently now that will give us more revenue to fund the projects and the things that the government provides. And it also, the best thing that we can do is provide people jobs, whether that's Donman Creek, whether that's Temple. We have lots of opportunities out there, and we need to take advantage of them.
Thank you very much. Lynn Gaddis, as Lieutenant Governor, what would you propose to the Governor in regards to capping the PFD, state spending, and implementing new taxes to balance the budget?
So I think I got it. I think there's three. Capping the PFD, taxes, and balancing the budget.
Right. You can start your time now.
All right.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I had all three of you. So firstly, I have not been a proponent of changing the PFD structure until it goes to the people. Literally was here when the PFD started, and I should back up, when the permanent fund started, and then the dividend started. A lot of people get those confused. As far as the budget, we're a state that we had a lot of money, we did a lot of things, and when you have less money, even a housewife in Wasilla knows that we got to tighten up our belts. And so I would help the governor in tightening up our belts and making efficiencies in government, because that's what people want to see. Because we know how we do it in our home, and that's what we want to see in government before we start pitching in with taxes or our PFD.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're going to switch seats, and we'll ask Mike Dunleavy and Kevin Meyer to come to the hot seat.
Do we get to clap now?
Yes, clap, clap, clap. Good job. For Mike, first question. The Matanuska-Susitna Borough filed to intervene in the FERC regulatory process, arguing that the project planners did not adequately consider Port McKenzie when they selected Nikiski as a preferred alternative. As governor, what location would you support and why?
Where the producers and those involved in the project think it's most economical. You have Nikiski, Matsu, and Valdez was part of that FERC discussion. So I think you let the market decide where the best location is going to be. I have no favorite because as governor of Alaska, in my entire state is Alaska. So let the market, let the producers decide where this is best going to be had. We'll go through the FERC process. We'll figure that out. But I don't think the governor should be gaming where that terminus is.
Okay, thank you very much. Kevin Meyer, how do you think the new FERC analysis for Port McKenzie will affect the regulatory process for commercial negotiations between the AGDC and a group of potential Chinese LNG customers and the financial institutions?
Wow, okay. That's a pretty heavy question. Well, you know, first of all, I too don't have a preference on where the pipeline ends. I personally think it ought to be here in Nikiski, where we already have an LNG plant that I'm very familiar with. And that's where AGDC and when we were running the pipeline, that's where we wanted it to go, is Nikiski. Now the governor's kind of taking that over, and he's working with the Chinese, and I'm really worried having the Chinese, who has a terrible human rights record, and they're going to fund it all, and will be totally beholden to them. That bothers the heck out of me. I'm cautiously optimistic. I hope the pipeline works. We all want the pipeline to work, but it needs to work correctly. And again, I think this governor is obsessed with making it happen at any cost, and I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll play musical chairs one more time. We'll ask Scott Hawkins and Phoebe Greenwald to come up to the hot seats. And Scott, your first question. The Trump administration is proposing a $200 billion infrastructure plan, which focuses on investments through state, local, tribal, and private partnerships. It also would return authority to state and local governments, focus on rural America, and streamline the permitting process. What would be your top 3 Alaska projects?
So what is this? Give the hard questions to the Anchorage guys?
You got it.
You know, I'm not sure what the top 3 projects would be. I think we need to get back to building big projects in the state. We're very timid, and we're very critical of projects that are out there to be proposed. Just a few weeks ago, we got a firsthand lesson in Anchorage of why we need the Cannery Arm Crossing. When that truck hit a bridge, it kind of shut down the commuter traffic for several days. I think we should be serious about building that project. I think we need to get some new roads built in the state. We haven't built a major new highway in the state for over half a century. And we need to be looking at things like the Ambler Road and other highway projects that will open up parts of Alaska, and not only open it up to commerce and resource development, but open it up for our citizens for access. So those are the types of things I'd be looking at.
Okay, thank you, Scott Hawkins. Now, Edie Grunwald, yeah, you can applaud. That's a lot. Edie, what additional priorities would you add to Mr. Hawkins' list? And how would you propose a state funding match for those projects, given the reduction in the state's budget?
We still pay taxes through the federal means, even though a lot of people look at the federal taxes. Well, it's paid by the feds, don't worry about it. But if the money's already there, like they wanted to do the bridge not the bridge, but the road towards Juneau to help out, and that would reduce some of the stress on the ferry system. You know, that would be one of them. The other one is when you're coming around Girdwood, there where the way station is, before you get there. I understand there's some interest in a bridge going from there to the Kenai. So that might be looked into. And I got an affinity for the train and for airplanes. So, look at our options there. We can bring some commerce to the state.
Okay, very good. Thank you. For the second round, we'll bring up Mike Chenault and Kevin Meyer. Mr. Chenault, SB 91 has been faulted with the escalating crime rate in Alaska. Did you vote for SB 91 as well as SB 54? And do you think the reform is working, and what should be done now?
Thank you, Burl. And yes, I did vote for 91. I haven't been afraid to tell folks that. It was a monumental change, and it hasn't worked. We did pass SB 54, which fixed some pieces of 91, but there's a lot of work that needs to currently be done. Just so you know, I did vote to repeal SB 91 last year because it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. Things that we need to do now, we're working on those in the legislature as far as bonding and trying to stop some of these criminals from going through the revolving door in and out. So I think we need to give the AG and administration the ability to put stiffer penalties on these folks.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Meyer, Alaska students' math and reading test scores are below the national average. What do you propose to improve our education system in Alaska?
Okay, well, that's a good question. And you're absolutely right. We pay our per student basis, we're one of the top paying of any states. I think New York might still be ahead of us, but yet our test scores are one of the bottom states. So we have a real disconnect, and it's not money, because obviously we're paying more than most states. I think what we need to do is give parents more choice. Frankly, some kids do better at smaller schools. Some kids may do better at private schools. And I would like to see parents have more choice on where their kids can go. Now, certainly in Anchorage, we've got an influx of people coming from different countries. I think we have over 105 different languages. That's putting a lot of stress. So again, I think that we need to just totally revamp our education system. There's a lot of good teachers in there, and I want the money to go to the teachers in the classroom because they're on the front line, and not so much for the management and administrators. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now if you guys would change chairs with Mr. Mike Dunleavy and Edie Grunwald. Mr. Dunleavy, the state of Alaska budgeted $1.8 billion for Medicaid in 2018. $580 million of that was general fund state dollars. However, Medicaid overspent by a projected $300 million in general fund state dollars and had to ask the legislature for a $300 million supplemental. What's causing such an increase, and what is your plan to reduce health care costs in Alaska?
So healthcare is crushing the entire country, not just Alaska. And we had seen this happen when the governor was talking about expanding Medicaid in the state of Alaska. A number of us actually were against that. He did it through the Executive Budget Act. But long story short, these costs are going to continue to escalate and eat into our savings because our operating budget is going to continue to close. I opposed it. A number of folks opposed it. We have to go and find out what exactly is driving these costs. There's a whole host of issues. Specialists are charging a certain amount of money. The number of folks going on the rolls are increasing the cost. But we've got to work with our federal delegation on loosening up some rules. But we also have to decide who should the state be taking care of. Should it be those folks that really need the care? Should it be all Alaskans that happen to lose a job or maybe are able-bodied? We have to come to terms with some of these things quickly. If we don't, we're going to break the bank, and that's what's happening right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Edie, Alaska has the highest healthcare costs in the country. From your perspective, what is driving these high healthcare costs, and what do you propose to bring these costs down?
First, I wish I had the two questions that the ones previous to me had. Second, there's actually a lot we can do. I have an older son whom is disabled, and he just got kicked off of Medicaid because of the Medicaid expansion. And I have TRICARE, but it also affects this disabled community as far as a lot of the resources that they have access to. So we need to reduce the match down and save money that way to the federal government. We need to cap how many people have access to this Medicaid expansion, because lo and behold, it's already been noted in other states that people end up getting their own insurance. And so that's still an option for the state of Alaska. And there's also a lot of money is saved when there's a savings account for people to have choice and have the same doctor that they can go to. And whatever the money that they save, they need to make everything transparent on what the cost is so that we can shop. And I got to stop.
Thank you very much. And one of the beautiful things about this format, well, this is the hot seat, and these are targeted questions. Everybody's going to stick around and talk to you and let you answer those questions personally, eyeball to eyeball, one-on-one. And our next team now will be Scott Hawkins and Lynn Gaddis. Okay, Mr. Hawkins, Congress recently passed S. 2135, Fix NICS Act of 2017 regarding Second Amendment rights. One of the provisions in the bill amends the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act to require each federal agency, including a federal court, to certify whether it was provided to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, the NCIS, disqualifying records of persons banned from receiving or possessing a firearm. The bill directs the Department of Justice, DOJ, to establish by incentives a state implementation plan, including submission of mental health and criminal history records to the NICS. If a state complies with its implementation plan, then the federal match may exceed 90% of program costs. The programs are not mandatory to the states. As governor, would you be supportive of these programs within the Fix NICS Act?
I don't think that I would be. I think we need to be very careful about programs that find ways to disqualify people from gun ownership. I'm a fierce defender of the Second Amendment, and we don't really have a problem here in Alaska. If we had a problem here in Alaska that act would solve people that are mentally incompetent using guns inappropriately and people being hurt or killed, if that was a big problem, I'd be more interested in that. But it's a solution looking for a problem in Alaska. And as far as I'm concerned, we really don't need it here.
Okay, thank you. Lynn, how do you propose to champion our Second Amendment rights in light of the 24-hour news cycle pushing an anti-gun narrative coupled with a liberal political platform that is using adolescents to push their anti-gun agenda? Do you think there is any legislation that Congress or the state legislature can pass that will make our schools safer from mass shootings? And if so, what would you propose?
So that's a large question, but a pretty small answer on my part. My heritage, my grandparents came from Russia during the revolution, and literally built into me that we should never, ever register our guns. So I'm a huge gun proponent, that we should never register our guns. So people tease Don Young about that, somewhat of that same statement. And I tell you, if you do your history, you'll realize that what he was talking about is he's absolutely right on. But when we look at, I look at myself. I went to Cordova High School, and we went duck hunting before school, had the rifle racks in the back, and drove up to school. I got to tell you, we need to have, and I am a full proponent, that we need to have people within our schools, or not to have gun-free zones so the bad guy knows where the guns are. I'm not saying to arm. Some people shouldn't be armed, and some of those people in school, some of the school teachers would raise their hands and say, don't arm me, I wouldn't be a great person. But there's a lot of people that should be, and we shouldn't have our kids just sitting so that they could be shot, and that they know it's a gun-free zone. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Linda. Moving on to question number 7. You guys are doing all great, staying within the format. I appreciate that. Mike Chenault and Edie Grunwald will be up next. Once again, Mike, the Matanuska-Susitna Borough filed to intervene in the FERC regulatory process, arguing that the project planners did not adequately consider Port McKenzie when they selected Nikiski as a preferred alternative. As governor, what location would you support, and do you support the current AK LNG plan?
Yeah, thanks, Merle. As far as the FERC process, I'm not sure what all that entails. I don't think any of us do, but what I do know is that the project folks that put that project together, that decided on Nikiski, actually looked at 22 different sites along the coast here in south central Alaska. They made that determination based upon costs and what costs were associated with that project in order to make it more feasible. They made that decision, not me. Certainly should not be the governor. The current governor, on the current plan that he's on, as Kevin said earlier, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm very cautiously optimistic that this project is going to go forward based upon the direction that the governor's taken it. We had partners that wanted to sell our product that we have for the most. And now we have partners that want to buy it for the least.
Okay, thank you very much. The reason I moved back over here, because it's obviously blocking someone's view, but the reason I moved over there is so that you guys will address the answers to them rather than to me. I'm just the moderator. I'm just asking the questions. So give them the answers, okay? Okay. Just say it. Edie, are you in support? You are. Are you in support of mail-in ballots? And how do you feel it worked in the last Anchorage election? How do you plan to implement oversight for elections in rural Alaska?
It's a great question. And since the lieutenant governor is actually responsible for the division of elections, you got to look at fraud. You got to make sure that the ballots are secure and that each vote counts. And I think the mail-in ballots, even though it did raise up from 72,000 in 2012 up to 80,000 this year. Some people got 8,000 votes that were returned the first week as undeliverable. So I question how updated the registry is, the database for the voter registration. That would be under my responsibility to make sure that would be updated. If there's any consideration of fraud, investigate it and prosecute it. And just do my best to make sure that bring integrity back into the elections.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next pairing is Mike Dunleavy and Lynn Gaddis. So, Mike, Cook Inlet fishery has historically been one of the most contentious fisheries in the state of Alaska. The Mat-Su Valley often expresses frustration with the Board of Fish process and management plans implemented by the ADF&G in what they believe caters to the commercial fishing sector. Both sectors are crucial to Alaska's economy. If elected governor, what is your vision in balancing out the two industries?
That's a good question. To have a balanced and fair fisheries in Cook Inlet, that's the goal. In the Upper Cook Inlet, we have several stocks of concern. We know there's a lot of heavy pressure within the inlet from a whole bunch of user groups, but the Constitution calls for us to have the maximum benefit of our resources for all people. So once again, as governor, I'd be governor for all of Alaska, not for one group or another, but all Alaskans in trying to fix the issues, not just in Cook Inlet, but across the state. So it's being fair, balanced, getting the right people in place, using good science, and making sure that we're making good decisions on behalf of all Alaskans.
Thank you very much. Lynn, a Cook Inlet commercial fishing group sued the North Pacific Fishery Management Council in 2013, claiming the state's management structure violated the Magnuson-Stevens Act. Did you agree with the Ninth Circuit Court's decision? And how do you think this decision will affect the way that residents in Alaska harvest fish in Cook Inlet?
So I do not know all the particulars, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend. But here's what I will say. I will say that being from the Mat-Su and the interior, we all want to be fair about how we fill our freezers. And I think that's the bottom line. And I think the folks in Cook Inlet, they're not trying to do their part to try to keep us from filling our freezers as well. So even though I'm not really familiar with that particular, all the innuendos there, I just basically want to say I think that commercial fishing and personal use fishing have a place, and I think that we can figure it out.
Thank you very much, Lynn Gaddis. Our next pairing is the Chardonnay with the shrimp. No, excuse me. The next pairing is Scott Hawkins and Kevin Meyer. Mr. Hawkins, Alaska has approximately 66% of federal public lands. There has been a history with federal agencies within the Department of Interior of overreach. How would you use the Department of Law, Natural Resources, or the Alaska Department of Fish and Game to push back with federal agencies who are diminishing the state of Alaska's authority to manage our resources?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is essential that we have an administration that vigorously defends our rights under the Statehood Compact, under ANCSA, under ANILCA, and the other applicable laws like the federal RS 2477 access that has applied up here for over 100 years. What we see is when we have left-wing administrations, there's kind of a tendency to back away from those battles. But the federal government, there's a lot of arrogance there, and they will overreach. And if we don't have an administration that's going to call them on that, then we're going to be worse off. We're going to see them getting away with that. And specifically, we need to be very careful about things like the Clutina Access settlement that Governor Walker negotiated with the Otna Native Corporation. That was a bad settlement, and thankfully, Otna didn't accept it in the end. We also, I think the governor needs to take the lead helping John Sturgeon raise money for his lawsuit. He's got to go back to the Supreme Court. These are the types of things that the governor needs to fight more vigorously than we're seeing now.
Thank you very much. Scott Hawkins. And Mr. Kevin Meyer. We have a dual federal-state management system for our fish and wildlife resources, which has been very problematic for the state of Alaska. Would you support a state constitutional amendment that would provide for a rural priority and bring back the state's authority to manage our fish and wildlife resources?
Okay, that's a good question, and as you know, we've spent many years fighting that battle over subsistence. I think the state should manage its own wildlife. I mean, we live here, we know best. But whether or not we should have a rural preference, I don't support that because I think the resources there are for all of us, all Alaskans. And so I do support Alaskans first on our resources rather than, if there's a shortage, allowing outsiders to come in. But the resources belong to all Alaskans, and that's my preference.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause. Those are the 9 questions that were submitted by the Republican Women's Organization. And now this is the only question that you will all answer, the same question. Okay? And of course, it doesn't apply to the folks here tonight because they've got some information and you have done a good job in providing information about yourself and the issues of the state of Alaska. But this is for all candidates, and we'll just, start the microphone. Just because we're going right to left or left to right, you'll be the first up. In your opinion, what is the most important issue of the day to the uninformed voter other than their PFD? I'll repeat the question. In your opinion, what is the most important issue of the day to all Alaskans, to the uninformed voter, other than their PFD?
Without a doubt, it's public safety across the board. Anywhere in the state of Alaska, folks are suffering under the current situation. We have the worst crime rate in the country by far. Is this a minute? Or is this
60 seconds, yes.
Okay. We have the worst crime rate in the country by far. It's gotten worse over the last 3 or 4 years. There's no doubt about it. Just 2 statistics real fast. New York City's murder rate is 4.1 incidences per 100,000 people. Anchorage is 8.6. And the sexual assault rate in New York City is 14.1 per 100,000 people. In Anchorage, Alaska, it's 171 per 100,000 people. That has got to be priority number 1 for any governor coming in.
Thank you very much. And Kevin, the same question. The most important issue to the uninformed voter.
I'll answer that. You've got to stop calling me Kevin. I concur that the number 1 issue is public safety, and I think we'd be hard-pressed to find somebody in this state that was uninformed about that. But let's just say there was. We do need to repeal Senate Bill 91. I think the public is so fed up with it at this point that reform is not the right word. The public wants to drive a stake through its heart and start over, and that's what we need to do. The driver behind Senate Bill 91 of not incarcerating nonviolent criminals, that's fine and well, but you can't throw out all meaningful penalties and then implement a catch and release policy. And so that works for trout, it doesn't work for criminals. So that is the number 1 issue. I concur.
If you were the trout, you wouldn't think it works so good for you.
I still alive.
Mr. Chanel, other than the PFD, to the uninformed voter, what is one of the most important issues?
Yeah, Merlin, thanks. Crime is the issue, but we have to look at the underlying factors in crime. And the biggest one I believe that we've got out there is the opioid and heroin crisis that affects all of our areas. None of us are immune. Whether you're rich or poor, it doesn't matter. It'll affect you. And so we need to address that issue, and I think by addressing that issue, we also address public safety.
Lynn's same question, other than the PFD, the most important issue.
So I could echo the same thing, certainly public safety, but I think the underlying thing, not only with opioids, but getting people a job, getting them out to work, getting them somewhere versus being idle, also I think goes hand in hand with public safety, and this state needs to get people working.
And Kevin Meyer.
Thank you. Yes, I'm gonna. That's my advantage is going last. I can kind of take all the good points everybody said, but no doubt, crime is the number 1 problem, and we got to stop protecting the criminals and start protecting Alaskans. And I just don't get it that we catch these guys and then we just let them go. And I get Senate Bill 91 was this. We even had an opioid problem. And an unemployment problem. The 2 together is creating some of the crime, especially lower level crime. But in Anchorage, we not only have the lower level crime, people stealing to support their habit, but we got the dealers in Anchorage, and they're shooting each other, and people are getting caught in the crossfire. So it's getting to be a very dangerous situation. We are changing our crime laws so that again the criminals, even the lower level ones, are going to spend more time in jail. If they need help, if they need mental health counseling, or if they need opioid treatment to get off, then do it in jail. don't do it outside of jail, because these guys are just going right back and committing the same crimes.
Okay, thank you very much. And Edie, other than the PFD, most important issue to the uninformed voter.
Uninformed, and I'm going to say crime, because last weekend I was in Fairbanks and I met with probably 200 people, and every time I brought up the term SB 91, I got the deer in the headlight look. So I had to explain to them what it was and what it did. They have crime, they get that, they just don't know why it's going up. See, so a lot of us have been moving into giving them the information that they need. Of course, we don't want to disrespect anybody while we're doing this, but crime not only has the opiates and the economy, but it affects businesses, families. Our police officers don't have the laws to back them up. I mean, that's why we have the revolving door. And so we need to fix that part of it, the laws, to give some teeth behind to support our law enforcement.
Thank you very much. I can appreciate this format because you didn't have to all answer the same question, go right to left, center to fold, and I didn't have to try to remember everybody where we started last. So now the next part of this format that's really going to be fun is the lightning round. But before we get to the lightning round, we have another one of Draw Your Favorite Audience question that's coming up, and we are going to let Elaine Spraker give our gubernatorial candidates a choice of three written questions from our audience. So you will also have to read the question.
Well.
How is it a choice if you can't see the question?
Luck of the draw.
I don't know, I need my glasses. Oh, that's easy. 6'7". No, that's not the question. Well, what is your opinion on paying back the credits to oil companies this year? So there's a bonding concept that's going through the legislature right now that's put in place by the governor. I think across the board, government needs to pay its obligations, whether it's oil tax credits, or I hate to say it, some may not like this, but your PFD is an obligation as well. But long story short, those obligations should be paid because the credibility of Alaska is on the line, and any future investment is going to be greatly impacted if we don't pay our debts.
Scott gets to take the next draw.
It's like Old Navy.
Yeah. There is no, if any, legislator intimately familiar with the workings of computers, programming, social networking, coordinating these issues between departments. Would you support the appointment or creation of an information technology commissioner to review all expenses related to IT issues? I would support improving the IT systems in the state of Alaska. They're antiquated, and they're part of the reason that our state government is so costly, because we're way out of date in many ways. But no, I would not support creating a new cabinet level department with a new commissioner to be solely concerned about IT. Organizationally, that belongs within the Department of Administration. There's a division within the DOA that deals with IT. I think what we need to do is up the game and bring in some folks that can implement the latest technologies. We'll probably have to invest in a bit of that.
Looks like more questions.
We only got to pick out a few.
You did.
Oh, it's all about choice. What is your position on criminal records being purged? I guess that would depend on what the criminal record was. We just had a piece of legislation this week, I think, that dealt with expunging marijuana convictions previous to the new marijuana laws taking place. As long as it was just a marijuana possession charge, I'm okay with that. Now, if it was a bargain down position, did they bargain down from a from a felony to a misdemeanor or to the marijuana charge, then I don't support that. But I don't think that the criminal records ought to be purged on other crimes, felonies or misdemeanors. I think that we ought to have access to that so that future courts can look at that, take that into consideration whenever they're applying the funds.
That brings us to our final lightning round before our closing remarks. And the way this is going to work, it's if you were at the doctor's office on the couch and I said, okay, one word answers, in other words, or a phrase. Okay, I'm going to give you one word, and the first thing that comes into your mind is what your answer, and we'll just, you want to follow me to the microphone or not? This is fun. Okay. I'm going to say Pelosi.
Publish it.
What did she say? You want to repeat that? Or a short phrase.
Courtney.
Okay. Kevin.
Okay.
PFD.
Protected.
2 words.
Lynn. Liberal.
Conservative.
Mike. Trump.
Donald.
AR-15.
Protect the rights.
Black Lives Matter.
All lives matter.
Okay. Wow. No, I'll come back and give another one. Blue Lives Matter.
Okay.
Blue Lives.
All lives matter. All lives matter.
Now we'll go back. Governor Walker.
Liberal.
Sustainable, he said also liberal.
Also liberal.
2 votes for liberal on the governor, lieutenant governor. Okay. Sustainable resources.
Oil.
Kevin. Alternative energy.
Worth pursuing.
Conservative.
Liberal.
Give you one more and we'll go back this way.
Okay.
Swamp.
What's happening now?
Kevin. Bipartisan.
Doesn't work.
Term limits.
Yes.
Illegal immigrant. I'm not going to deport you, Mike, honest.
Unregistered.
Electoral college.
An important tradition.
LGBTQ.
Why?
Wasn't that great? That was good. Okay, very well done.